So good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start today's panel discussion. Thank you, right in the beginning, thank you so much for all the panelists to take out time for this discussion, which we are going to have. So good afternoon, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome for today's session. So today we have a very interesting and extremely relevant topic on why schools must develop storytelling and writing skills in children. This is a very hot topic, especially with NEP and NCF also coming in. So it becomes extremely relevant. Interestingly, we have an all-women panel today. So each one of you, I am sure, bring in unique experiences and will help us understand how storytelling and writing can shape young minds. We look forward to hearing your insights on how these skills support students' growth. I'd like to again extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed panelists for joining us today. Just to give you a very, very small introduction to begin with, we have Dr. KATHA Sharma. She's joining us from Bharti Airtel Foundation. She's the head of curriculum and training. We have Ms. Manisha Chaturvedi. She's the coordinator of Cambridge International at City Montessori School, Lucknow. Then we have Ms. Priyanka Barara. She's the principal, Salwan Public School, New Delhi. We have Ms. Sandhya Avasthi with us. She's the director and principal of DPS Flagship School in Greater Noida. And then we have Ms. Seema Upadhyay from Shikshanta School, Gurgaon. A very warm, hearty welcome to all the esteemed panelists. Thank you all for being here. As I mentioned before, we are excited to explore how storytelling and writing can nurture young minds and help students succeed both academically and personally. Very, very relevant topic. I personally also believe in it. I'll ask Dr. KATHA Sharma to share her experiences, but let me give you a little lengthier introduction here of Dr. KATHA Sharma. So Dr. KATHA Sharma is an experienced educator and leader in education management. She's the head of curriculum and training at Bharti Foundation, where she provides students with innovative and impactful learning experiences. She has a rich background and she's worked in multiple education sectors. She has a very strong expertise in experiential learning, educational technology, and instructional leaderships. Over her 2-decade-long career, she has guided educators across India, contributing to the success of many educational institutions. My first question from you, Dr. KATHA, is what do you think is the role of storytelling in today's times? And because you come from a foundation, non-profit organization, so especially in underserved communities, what do you think is the role of storytelling? That's one question. It follows by what strategies is Bharti Foundation implementing to encourage storytelling and writing among students in underserved communities? Over to you, KATHA, ma'am.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much. Glad to be the part of this panel and, seeing the teachers and all the esteemed educators as panelists. And believe me when I say this, I have always been a promoter of using storytelling in the classrooms. The approach has been always beautiful. Believe me, when I started as a teacher, even when I was taking grade 11th and 12th, my chapters, my teachings always revolved around, telling like a story. So I personally believe that this is the best pedagogical approach, specifically when taken into the classrooms, uh, especially with the children of, foundational years. It generates a lot of interest and helps in retaining the concepts as well. And while working in the foundation for almost 2 years now, I've realized, these children, because they come from different background, as you said, underserved, but they do not have that exposure around the world. They have not stepped out from their own villages. So telling them the stories of what is happening around and getting it into the concept has really helped us. So, my personal belief in this pedagogical approach is not only it teaches, but
Mm.
it also generates the social emotional connect in the
Correct.
children, which
Correct.
is very, very important.
Mm.
Uh, Also, the students are able to empathize with different cultural needs, what is happening in the across cultures, what is happening across the world. They may have not seen it, but the visualization, the imagination, the power of stories help them retain those things in their daily learning. Not only that, we also, tell our parents, orient our parents that, whatever they talk to the children, they should ask like a story, what happened in school? How will
Mm.
they define their daily learning in the school? So they should talk like that. Parents should tell the stories to their children, to their wards, to generate that passing of traditions, cultural traditions. हम हम भूल रहे हैं, बहुत सारी परंपराएं, बहुत सारी चीजें हम भूल रहे हैं. I remember when we were kids, living in joint families, our grandparents telling us a lot of stories, and now those stories in the education system have converted into a pedagogical
Mm.
approach,
Mm.
because that has been always the right type of learning and retention. So this is something we promote in the classrooms. Of course, story not only helps generate this emotional connect, also helps captivating the children of attention, student engagement in the classroom. uh, the concepts become very interesting. Not only that, when you ask children to paraphrase something, that also helps in their own language development, their self expression. When they tell an answer like a story, they are able to express well, they are able to imagine well, which promotes the creativity in the children, which promotes and enhances the critical thinking, the reasoning power of the children. So that is something, that really helps. And at Bharti, we really, really are also thankful to Katha, because, we have been using Katha platform for long, and our teachers, a lot of teachers are here and they would vouch for it when I say that they have used your stories, they have done a lot of sessions with you all, they have enriched their story pedagogical approach, and have taken that into the classroom. And not only that, I also want to take the opportunity to thank the pilot that we did for Alexa platform. The children enjoyed that so much, and we have been using the same in our classroom. So I mean, we as an organization are a big promoters of this approach. Along with these, your platform, we also use a lot of books in the classroom. We have our classroom libraries. We do a lot of library activities with the children. We use the children book trust books, the Eklavya books, the Pratham books, where you will find a lot of series of small progressive stories which children would take in their daily learning, which are relating the concepts also. Even if you have to solve a numerical problem, that comes with a story that, okay, there are two friends going to the market, they have 150 rupees each. Now they are going to buy apples. So, that's the part that where you also connect the children learning different concepts. So, yeah, a lot of
Right.
confidence building I've seen in my children, a lot of self-expression I've seen in the children. And we generally, for all subjects, we follow the integrated approach, and we follow the storytelling method to do.
So I have a question there. Uh, After storytelling, does that lead to writing?
It
How
does.
do you,
It does.
put storytelling and writing together? And what is the difference you feel, writing skills? How do they, it translates into writing? And what do you think does writing do to children? And why do you think writing is important?
So, this is very important that, just the skills, the four skills of language, and that's how story pedagogy approach help us. So when the teacher narrates a story, the first skill, the children listen, the children retain, the children understand, the comprehension happens. Uh, the children are asked to paraphrase the same. The children are asked a lot of comprehension questions, which leads to their spoken
Correct.
language skills
Hmm.
development. And then children are even asked to read, draw, or probably,
Hmm.
change the ending of the story if they were that character that enhance their, recognition, reading, their creativity. And then towards the end, we ask them to now probably prepare a book review, or probably we give them four
Correct.
comprehension questions and write.
Correct.
So,
Right.
all of this happens in a sequence. So, of course, language, be it English or be it a regional language, because our schools run into 5 states and we follow
Mhm.
regional language multilingual approach in our
Right.
schools. So we focus
Right.
our in our schools, the first language is the regional language, and then second language is English. So both the languages we are developing like that. So of course, when the child is able to listen, speak, understand, comprehend, visualize, is able to express in words as well. Words are mere symbols, Expression is important. So when you talk about writing, we generally promote the expression in writing and not just merely copying in writing. So whatever they think, even there are sometimes grammar errors, but if they are able to express what they have heard, if they are able to, tell us in the written form that, what they have
Right.
understood, that is what we promote. And that's what it does to children. What writing does to children is bring a confidence that yes, and bring a confidence not only in children but in teachers, that yes, they have understood what was supposed to be in the
Right.
classroom.
Right.
So gradually, I mean, I have myself been a language teacher. I
Right.
have done my doctorate in English literature and language. So I know how language is developed. It's not a magic one. It takes time. But if the sequence is followed, the skills are
Mm.
followed,
Mm.
writing becomes really easy for the children.
Right. Mm. Thank you so much. This was very insightful. Thank you so much. We move
Thank
to
you.
our next panelist. This is Manisha Chaturvedi. Miss Nisha Chaturvedi, I hope your audio is fine as of now.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, of course. Yes, of
Thank you.
course. That's wonderful. We'd
Thank you.
love to hear your thoughts. So, Miss,
Hmm.
just to give a little introduction, Miss Manisha Chaturvedi, she's the coordinator of Cambridge International or at City Montessori School, Lucknow. She has over 27 years of experience in diverse, fields of education. She has taught English across various curricula, including ISC, IB, IGCSE, and currently, as part of the school's management team, she leads a dedicated group of professionals committed to enriching learning experience and fostering the personal development of every student.
Hmm.
A very, very warm welcome to you, Miss Manisha Chaturvedi.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
ma'am, I have a question from you. So, how does City Montessori School integrate, especially the Cambridge curriculum, integrate storytelling within its global citizenship curriculum? And how does that help? That's my first question.
Right.
And my second question is, does writing skills also, how do you work around the writing skills and how does it enhance students' understanding of different cultures and global issues? So these are the two questions
Okay.
which come your way.
Right. So thank you for your questions and a big hello to everybody there. So I'll start with the first question first. The global citizenship and how we address it at our school. We are a Cambridge school as well. And CMS, we City Montessori School, our motto is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So that is one thing where the entire world is a family. Ms. Kirti has already addressed beautifully, the merits of storytelling and how it enhances language learning. So let me just talk about a few strategies that work very well in classrooms and outside classrooms. I'll start with something very simple as circle time, which is a very powerful way of storytelling. And there are other strategies that we use, like story-based debates, case studies. Then we have role playing, we have group discussions, we have talk shows, and we have interviews and hot seating. Just to list a couple of activities that we take up in classrooms to enhance learning in our students. I'll just give a few examples here. Let's say story-based debates and case studies. I would like to give an example of a case study that my students did on water pollution. So at Gomti, in Lucknow, we have a river, Gomti. So our students went to River Gomti and they spoke to a lot of residents which live near the river. And they got their stories from long ago as how the river has changed down the ages. This was a project that they took up on river pollution, on water pollution. So as I spoke to all the people living around the area and they shared their stories with the children, they had a beautiful understanding of how the whole thing works. What are the causes, what are the effects, and what can they do about river pollution, what about water pollution. And when they came back, they shared their findings with the rest of the students. So this was a better way of learning for them, instead of simply telling them theoretically what water pollution is, and so on and so forth. So this is a way of how storytelling is incorporated when they go and collect their own stories from real people in real life.
Right.
Works very wonderfully. Other ways that we incorporate storytelling and case studies in our curriculum is through that they're a part of assessment. They're an integral part of our assessment, which means we have case studies as a part of our examination question papers for most of the subjects like history and geography, mathematics and science. So as a part of a question paper, we have a case study where children have to use critical thinking and problem solving and give their opinions on how to solve a real life problem.
So is this part of also writing activity which they do at the time?
Right. So they first taught this in classes. Case studies are given to students in classrooms also.
Correct.
For example, an imaginary country is taken up where, let's say, a discussion about hunger or refugees. So these kind of case studies are given to children where they discuss, they research, they come and they make presentations on the given problems. And then after a lot of discussion and debate, each one might have a personal opinion. And then they, discuss the merits and demerits. They reach a solution. So that's a very practical way of learning. And it's a good way of, involving them in what's happening around the world by simply telling them what's right and wrong. And they arrive at a solution on their own as they discuss a problem given to them.
So in other words, what you're saying is that it also leads to critical thinking and problem solving skills.
Absolutely. So through storytelling, a lot of things are addressed.
Right.
It's a beautiful way of understanding, of identifying with the problem. And when you identify yourself with the problem or a given situation, you really think better.
Absolutely.
Right. And, there are other ways. I'm being a literature and teacher myself. I constantly use things like role playing, group discussions, and, interviews, hot seating in classroom, where, for example, I can give an example of a Shakespearean play Macbeth, which teaches in very many ways how does it connect to global issues like territorial expansion or politics, a study of politics, or simple psychological study of a man's love for power.
Absolutely.
So, and there are wonderful ways of hot seating where a student takes a hot seat and others question him about his motives, his ways, and that gives them a way to explore a mind of a man much deeply. So that works really well in classroom.
That's a fantastic strategy which you shared with us. I think a lot of us are going to do it in the classroom. and a very good way of doing it. Thank you so much, Manisha ma'am. We move on to Priyanka ma'am. A very warm welcome, Priyanka ma'am.
Thank you.
Priyanka ma'am is a principal of Salwan Public School, and she is an innovative leader with over 25 years of experience. She has a very enriching and diverse, again, experience, because as educationists, her career spans leadership roles in Balbharati, Toon Public School, where she has driven initiatives in inclusivity, public relations, and digital strategies. That's so wonderful. Uh, Ma'am has been honored with State Teacher Award and has championed global cultural exchanges like Australia-India Bridge Program. A very warm welcome to you, Ms. Pereira.
Thank you.
This is so fantastic. So I have a question here for you also. How has Salwan Public School utilized storytelling and writing? I mean, of course, it's like, is storytelling, writing an offshoot of storytelling, or is it a very separate thing? How do you feel? Do they
See, we have
complement each other? So that's my question.
the storytelling actually is the beginning. If we want to,
Right.
if we want to promote writing and writing
Mhm.
practices, and if we want to promote the spirit of appreciating literature, or to be able to be creative and express your own ideas, storytelling is the beginning. So storytelling is incorporated at all levels in different forms. For example, when we talk about junior classes, there are stories around everything that they do, starting from their circle time or to the learning of their alphabet or numbers. So there are stories woven around those, because we strongly feel that story gives the teacher a hook to connect to the child. So a classroom teaching is not just about delivering certain facts or telling children what is around the world. What matters is how the facts are being told, how students are being familiarized with the concepts around them. Therefore, we make story an integral part of their system. So teachers weave stories around various concepts, and this automatically gives an engagement for the child in the class. We have storyboards. We have a lot of visual storyboards in our classrooms. For example, in junior classes, they have pictures through which they create these stories, and automatically it helps in building their language skills. But in senior classes, we've started a program where when a unit is completed in a given subject, each week is devoted to that. So we have a display chart on the display board, and the children just put in their takeaways from that unit, their muddy points, and what is their strongest takeaway. And then a group presents it in the form of a story. So basically using it to enhance the learning and to bring it stronger into their memory. I'll just give you a small example. Now, if I tell you that there are two islands, Island A and Island B, one has a population of 9,52,232, and the other has 18,37,000, and so on, right? It'll be hard for anybody to remember. We are adults. We've been using things for our memory, but yet we won't be able to do. But at the same time, if to remember the population of Island A, I say a 9-year-old boy has 5 senses, 2 legs, 2 hands, 32 teeth. It becomes a total of 9,52,232.
Fantastic.
So using these little things to give out a concept. If you're talking about history, there are so many anecdotes that can be connected to the history lessons. Now, one of our teachers, we do a lot of brainstorming in our sessions. We have weekly sessions, subject sessions with the teachers, and we do a lot of brainstorming on ideas, because we strongly believe in collaboration and understanding that not one person comes out with a perfect plan. So we take inputs from everybody and create something that is workable and can be very beneficial in a given classroom, and we do a repeated model. So one of our teachers, she presented how the story, how the process of oxygenation and deoxygenation of blood during the process of circulation can be introduced first in the form of a story. So the moment we say something in the form of a story, the child begins to visualize. Now, everybody may not have an aptitude to visualize a disc-shaped cell and the arteries and the veins. We are using a lot of audio-visual aids as well. But then we want something that the child can recall, analyze, and apply critical thinking to it. So just to, do the step-by-step process of deoxygenation, oxygenation, distribution, collection, and renewal. So we created a character, that there is a character called Ruby who lived inside the heart, right? Who lived inside a heart village and resided in the right ventricle of that heart village. And one day he was commanded to purify the blood. Now off went Ruby, went, and then you chalk out the entire path where all it went off at first because it is deoxygenated. It moves on to the lungs, gave away the oxygen, gave away the CO2, took the oxygen, came back to the left ventricle, and then the left ventricle applied some energy and it was pushed out into the... So now when you talk about the same process, the teacher would be explaining, showing a chart or something else and the entire flow chart, but doing it, the story adds an element of connection, which is extremely important. Because without a connect in a classroom, you really cannot make meaningful transaction between the teacher and the child. So this is how we try and incorporate, and we've seen by doing these things, it has helped improve the expression of children in many ways. We, of course, have various opportunities and various platforms where children write stories. They publish stories on various platforms. And these days, AI is also assisting them. But our focus is on helping them develop the skill of using AI sensibly. AI will be there. AI will always be there for everyone. We cannot say that AI can be shunned away, but we need to develop that skill in our children, that put up the right prompts and get what you want from AI and use it to create a story for yourself. Right. So when we give out a certain concept, we often have these kind of group activities for our children where they present their perspective, right? Similarly, when we talk about the horrors of partition, when we talk about the partition that happened in 1947, we draw comparisons of partitions that have happened, separations happened across the world also. So if you just twist that fact a little and then ask them to create a story, it builds critical analysis.
Right.
They're able to analyze.
Absolutely.
But if we constantly just go on giving facts one after the other,
Correct.
the skill of developing an analysis, which is extremely important, will be lost somewhere. So that is how we try and use it.
Perfect. I have one question. How do you translate this into writing activity and developing writing strategies? Because what happens is these days children are not so keen to write also, you know.
So you have to again
that.
create a
So,
motivation.
yeah.
Why are you doing it? So when we do a collaborative activity, you give
Right.
a group that each one of you will be sharing your story in the classroom, and who will be judging? The rest of the groups. So
Correct.
you have to help them understand or derive the pleasure from that process. Only then they get drawn to that particular skill or craft.
Thank you so much. This was so good. I think we all have taken many takeaways actually from this small, whatever you've shared with us. Thank you so much, Priyanka ma'am. Sandhya ma'am, good afternoon. So Sandhya ma'am is a visionary leader. She's the director and principal of DPS Greater Noida. It's the flagship institution of the DPS Society. Miss Avasti, she has a holistic approach and has made a lot of, I mean, I have so much to say because I've known her for a couple of years now. And as a former director of DPS Society, she coordinated national competitions and supported numerous satellite schools. Her commitment extends beyond academic. She led charitable initiatives and encourages students to contribute to their communities. Again, she's been recognized with lots of awards, Skill Bharat Samman and Lishta Women Achievers Award. She has helped DPS Greater Noida maintain its top ranking in the region and received recognition for sustainability. A very warm welcome to you, Sanama. My question from you is, how does DPS Greater Noida incorporate storytelling into its environmental education initiatives? The other thing I would absolutely appreciate it if you can also focus on how to develop writing skills in children, especially in today's scenario with, as ma'am mentioned, AI coming in. So how do we kind of, take it forward from there? And maybe over to you. I will share you can share your screen if you would like to.
All right.
And
Good afternoon, everyone. Namaskar. And thank you, Sonia, for that wonderful introduction. Sometimes I like to hear because it's a revelation to me also. That's like a story now, which is unfolding. And everybody, it's 3:30 in the afternoon, and you have sacrificed your sleep over us. I think really appreciate it. Stories are very valuable. I mean, everything that I remember of growing up about places or people or anything has been because of a story attached to it. And that's how it becomes that much more relevant. And before I speak about sustainability, and you asked the question about writing. So I was telling the other day, we were having a meeting where I was telling my teachers, we were discussing, and I remembered the story of, and if you don't mind, I narrate it again. So this is a young couple that goes out. They have an engagement and they must go out. They have an 18-month-old boy who they leave with the nanny, and they have had a nice evening. And when they come back, the nanny is a little sheepish and she's very embarrassed about not doing her job very well. And so the mother comes in, so does the father. They have a plush drawing room, which is, as anyone would know, if you leave the child with a crayon or a chalk, the wall is decorated very well. And the child scribbled all over. And so they gasp in surprise, but they get closer. And then the mother just rushes and hugs the child, because the child had made several figures, but amongst them were these stick figures of a mom, a dad, and a baby, and lots of hearts and the roads going elsewhere. And the road was less and more traveled, no matter what it was. There were trees and there were stars and there were lots of hearts. So the mother was overwhelmed because she said, this is my child's first love letter to me. And then, so which means writing is such a natural part of human expression, right? The 18-month-old child didn't know how any alphabets. He didn't know how to put a sentence together. He could barely, put. Somebody's got very excited with the story. But if you mute yourself, it'll be lovely.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry about this.
Not at all. Happens all the time. So, we were discussing about what comes first, reading or writing. And so the story, I always say writing comes before anything else because it's an expression. We then, as some of the panelists before me spoke, we put so much store to the structure and the grammar that somehow we take the joy out of writing. So writing is very natural as long as you know what you have to say. And if you have the words to be able to say it, and you feel passionately about it so that it naturally flows into something meaningful. And I don't think that it is too contrived. We make it very contrived because I also, some of the things that I say very often, by my age, I say it often, is that writing before art is a craft, right? You need to practice. And you really need to practice. And then only something beautiful will come. Before you learn how to cut flower out of this paper, you have to really waste a lot of paper, right? Before you finally, carve out a flower out of a waste paper or whichever paper. So you need to keep practicing writing. But for me, people say I write well. And I've written from as long as I remember. It came naturally to me. But I thank my parents because right from the time we knew anything, the first gifts that my parents gave were books. And they gave us all kinds of books. They gave us books in all the languages that we know. And they gave, and we, they were sometimes weren't expensive books, but they were books. So when we read what other people were saying, were expressing, were feeling, it also gave us the strength to be able to express ourselves. I never went to any writing class. I don't think there was any formal writing taught to me. But because I was reading so much and there were so many stories, I come from a very Uttar Pradesh home where there were lots of people talking. And when they were talking, they were sharing each other's opinion all the time. Who did this and where does this come from? So my home was, I would wake up to stories, right? And so there were no boundaries that, oh, so and so sleeping, so we must all keep quiet. So I heard stories and I heard expressions, and I heard expressions of sorrow, of grief, or other people facing troubles or triumphs. So this all became a part of our lives. And I think that's how I can speak for myself, because writing came naturally to me, and I think it came organically to me through where my surroundings. So
I have a question here. Now, in today's scenario, where
Mhm.
people are not reading enough, and we're
Mhm.
talking about stories, and we are talking about storytelling. So,
Mhm.
how do we kind of take this forward to our young
Sonia,
children?
also, you see what happens is that, the time when I was growing up, the only medium to entertain myself, I started reading out of sheer entertainment.
Right.
There wasn't anything much. We would only be sent out to play dot at 5:30 after we finished our homework. I come from back then. So out of the fact that there wasn't much to do between that time, one would read. And once you start reading, it's like very addictive, right? You
Correct.
need to read.
Hmm.
But now the children have many other mediums through which they experience life, right? Reading was how I approached life, how somebody in England lives a life, how David Copperfield, circumvented his experiences, how somebody in the Panchatantra was doing. I had no other ways in which I was approaching life, but children these days have many such mediums, and just because we didn't have that experience, I don't think it's right to belittle or just to just to say this isn't that great, right? People are hearing stories, right? People are still experiencing human beings, those are experiences, those are stories of their lives. Human beings will just experience different, approach life in different ways depending on where they are, what their circumstances are. And as an educator of the modern world, having inhabited the past world,
1 second, ma'am. I'll just mute this person.
it's fine. I don't get disturbed. My life
Okay.
is with too many people around. So, except that, by now I forget what I was saying. So, so it's okay. In which how children approach life these days. It's important to know this.
So
And
how do we still keep the art of course, storytelling, of course, alive, which is happening in different forms, but writing alive with AI coming in? Ma'am mentioned about AI. I am really curious to know, it's open to all the panelists, that how would you ensure that children are writing? Like, we are having a National Writers Workshop now. And of course, I am part of the jury where I'm checking, and it's interesting to hear their stories. That's fine. But how else, on a regular basis, Kirti ma'am, in your case, and of course, it's open to everybody right now. That how do you kind of, take the writing forward in the classroom scenario, especially with so many distractions happening around?
so, how will I? So, there's a very interesting story to this. So, I would hear people say that when AI comes, a lot of jobs will be lost. And so I started feeling I have virtually lost a job. I'll tell you how. Because as I said, from childhood, one of the things, because it's only one of the things that I do very well is to write. A lot of people around the world would approach me. I have to write this, write it for me. I have a newspaper, article. I have something. So Sandhya was always writing. And suddenly I have nobody calling me because now they're all writing through the AI. And I have become virtually jobless because I don't write anymore for other people. So that's one person that who's lost a vocation because of AI and the
The
chatbot.
question is, have you? I mean, I doubt it. So, but yeah,
So,
it's an
how does
open-ended thing.
anybody, what is the motivation? As Priyanka said, what's the motivation to write? I can now call up somebody or write a WhatsApp and get my work done. Why would I write the letter to the editor? Right? Why would I do certain things? So I have to reinvent the reason to be able to write to somebody. And if I have that and I have the wherewithal to be able to write or construct, then surely I will write. Why wouldn't, there is a need to write. There are stories that, if every child is not told to be a scientist or a mathematician, and there's a child who has language facility, the child can write very well, and we can recognize who this child is, then this child will tell stories and write stories, while somebody else will write a scientific journal very well. Not everybody will have the same register or the same need or the same way to write. So I think what we do is through stories, we develop a liking for the language. Through our language periods, we develop the ability to write well, and then give the children circumstances to write. And I think everybody writes there.
Perfect. That's a very
Yes,
good.
coming back to how do I then develop sustainability in the school through storytelling? So you lost it, Sonia. I didn't, right?
No, because you were doing a good job of. I mean, I was quite mesmerized
So
with
again,
whatever you had to
I've
share.
also studied, and lots of my teachers are here who I really want to thank because I know it's been a hard day at work. Is that we do a lot of conferences, we do MUNs, we do mock parliaments, we do Rajniti, page Rajniti, and many such things, which I'm sure people do in various other forms. Over the world, if conferences or posters or all these send emails to parents, if these alone could change how sustainability or environment could be protected, then we would have really, really saved the environment by now. So I don't think that really works, because that, I think, I've been thinking about it, it's cerebral, it connects your head, right? But the stories would connect the heart. And so if I have some examples, if I'm allowed, I will share my screen.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So
Yes, you can.
is it shared?
You can share now.
It's shared.
Yes, of course.
So
This is
this
so
is the
wonderful.
butterfly effect, right? This is how we
Right.
will tell them that every action has a very small or big consequence. So suppose this visual is shared with the child, it will lead to this little butterfly somewhere in the world is, this is again the whole chaos theory, how small acts can have big results. So through this, and then if this stick figure is every child, then every child will write what do they do, which, and you have to realize, what do I really do that causes damage to the atmosphere or to the environment. And through this story, I could be the first storyteller and I could say that I use a lot of plastic bottles. And that is, I have to collect some facts about what is the damage of plastic to the environment. And through this, I can ensure that there's a conversation around, I have to change the slide and I better know how to do it. Yeah. I don't know, basically, how to do this. I know now. Yeah. And
Yes.
similarly, I mean, this is about food wastage.
Right.
I could have found a uglier picture because it is, but I didn't want people here in the afternoon to be disgusted by it. But I just, or I can put the bin out on the teacher's table, and I'd say this is all wastage. And somehow children have to realize that every grain of food which is wasted goes into the garbage bin. And this garbage bin, and then you connect this to the human story. I can give them 10 scenarios. Okay, tell me about the farmer in Ranchi, right? What is this farmer's life? How much has he gone? What kind of ordeal has he gone through? Battling all kinds of things. And then what about this thing, or the farmer in South? My friends from the South are here, where they grow the banana fruit, and it really is a fruit that cannot. It has to be handled with care. Now you tell me about this banana dweller's life, the farmer's life.
Right.
Tell me the transportation. You feel the banana's pain, right? Before it is found in a greater Noida dustbin. So you have to realize and bring closer to the children the pain that people go through to be able to have a connection. Any kind of posters or a rally or any such kind of a thing, till the time the child, the story of this Tarai farmer who's standing in knee-deep water where leeches on the legs, growing food for you, which you're throwing out. How does it feel? You just have to feel the pain.
Right.
Right? So these are the stories that we do. And maybe I have a few more. This is the farmer.
Yes.
So you can tell the story of the cattle, you can tell the story of this man and the woman behind him. And to tell them this man is about 35 years of age, your dad who goes to office is older than him but looks younger. So you have to bring the pain of the people or their triumphs or their success stories. And through these stories, you connect the environment to themselves. This is a painting which has been made by a very close artist who's right now waiting outside for me, Ranjit. And Ranjit made this, and this is a little boy the same age, right? This is his father, right? Now there are stories here, right? These are the kind of stories that I would like to tell the students, through which I connect sustainability to them. I don't want to make sustainability speeches. I'll just bring a character and I say, okay, feel the character, research the character, talk about the character, give the character a name. If you invite this character home, are you it says, would you be, could he be a guest in your house, right? How would you treat him? What language does he speak? Those are the stories that are my stories, and through which I think everybody can change the world.
Right. Thank you so much. This was so wonderful. I think we can go on and on. Thank you so much, Sandhya. This was fantastic. We move on to Seema ma'am. Seema, I call her Seema Didi. She's from Shikshanta. She's a passionate educator. With Shikshanta for almost 25 plus years again. She's a trained Waldorf teacher and a storyteller. Seema Didi focuses on fostering inclusive, compassionate learning environments, especially for early and primary years. Her expertise includes curriculum development, parent education, and teacher training. She's also the creator of I Hear You. That's very stories for gentle souls in all times, which provides a nurturing space for young children to explore their emotions. Currently, she's part of the collective leadership team at Shikshanta Senior Secondary School in Gurgaon, where she remains dedicated to promoting compassionate and invigorating learning spaces. Welcome, Seema Didi. So I have a question for you here also. How does Shikshanta school curriculum support creative expressions through storytelling and writing? So that's
Thank you
my
so much.
first question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sonia, and thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts out here. And I think so much has already been said. But what I would like to begin with is by collectively trying to first understand that when we use the term stories or say story narration or storytelling, are these stories only something that we find in books, or are these stories something that we find only outside of us? Because at the first level, also to understand that each one of us, we all have our own stories. And sometimes we really remember those conversations or those discussions with people which we've had and which have really inspired us. So these have been stories in their own selves, and they have very deep meaning, these conversations and discussions. So the stories that the children carry. So each and every child who's a part of the classroom has an individual narrative or a story. So at the first level, to encourage children to talk about their stories, to understand their narratives. So it begins with a lot of practices where, of course, circle time is a very powerful tool where the everyday stories too. But the children, when they come back from their homes, they're there in the school, when they begin the day with the didis or bhaias or the teachers in the school. So the first thing is, what is it that happened? What is something interesting that they experience? And each and every experience is a story. So first to have interest in those stories, and secondly, also where do you find these stories? So for me as an educator, I think at the first level, I continue to find stories in the classrooms every day with a child when I walk in the corridor, or when I'm in the group with a child, or when I sit next to a child in the lunchroom, and the child suddenly shares about something. I remember a lot of stories. So there was this one particular story that I remember, a conversation with the children in the corridors when I was walking with them, when all of a sudden their attention was there on an electric socket right there. And a child looking at the electric socket just had this question that, I see this little bird sitting over here. And all of a sudden, the possibility, the leading questions, and I asked that, okay, what do you think the bird is doing over there? So maybe this is a little home, or maybe this is a warm space. So do we all have a warm spaces? And then sharing with them, yes, I find my warm space when I sit with my cup of coffee. So when do you connect with your warm space? Those kinds of possibilities, those kinds of leading questions every day, those are like which encourage children to develop those dispositions. The disposition to be a thinker, the disposition to be a writer, the disposition to be original, because they you're not judging the child for the expression is so much original. So this is how, and how do you nurture these dispositions? Because when you encourage them to imagine, when you ask them to share, when you encourage them to just not be fearful of anything around them and the environment in which they live, what is the environment where they exist? So the trees have their stories, the birds have their stories, and then offering them those possibilities that, okay, when you're just, all of you have left for the day, what is it that the tree would be saying to the bird sitting over there? What is the kind of conversation that the two of them would be having? And building those stories from there. So I think it's about first understanding that what do we mean? What are the stories? Where do we find these stories? And how do we nurture these dispositions? And of course, again, at different age levels, it also varies. Because when children from the very early years, which is from your pre-primary school years, move to the primary or the middle or senior school years, there also has to be a structure to everything. So while you have your creative expression, how do you provide a structure to that? So yeah, I'm also carrying some of the work of my children. So this is a story booklet that you see over here. This has been created by my children of class 2 recently. And that is also because um, in within the curriculum also, if you have to build in those opportunities for children, it has to be an uninterrupted block. So recently, for a period of 4 to 5 or 6 to 8 weeks, we took up a theme on Shabd Manch with the children, the power of words. So what do words convey, the kind of emotions they communicate? And then while the children listen to a lot of stories, a lot of narratives, but at the same time to also help them put their thoughts and in a structured manner on paper, also of course not compromising at all on their originality of thought. So we just gave them this booklet that written and illustrated by, for me as a child in class 2, also to think of this, that authors are not aliens, authors are not people who are other than me, I can be a little author too. So this little child is story, and the story is written and illustrated by Rayansh, this child in class 2. And if you look at the illustrations here, so here it begins with meet the characters in the story. And then from the characters, it's also what is a genre. So it's a happy story. And then you have illustrations, and then you have the written expression of the child. Nothing has been corrected over here, but if you look at the illustrations, it's a very, very original story. And then when you share the stories with the rest of the peers in the group, so it's about my self-esteem, it's about me being acknowledged. And more than anything else, I think it's my expression that is being acknowledged. So I think this, other than this also, and you're so familiar with Shikshantar, Sonia, that the day begins with a story and the day closes with a story.
Yes.
And when we take up stories with the children also, I think some of the stories where you also challenge the old notions and cut down those notions.
Correct.
For instance, there's this story by Shel Silverstein that once I had taken up with the children in giving, and the tree towards the end gives away everything. But to also present the other side of it, the other perspective, that defining healthy boundaries is also a very important part of the growing up process. So is there something else that the tree could have done? And the amount of responses the children will come up with and how they surprise you. So there are so many possibilities that they exist. But I think there also has to be a kind of relationship between all the components of language development. So it's one's like you kind of help them think, you help them imagine, you provide those possibilities, but at the same time putting it down in the form of original expression, written expression. How do you also through your choice of words also communicate that? So yeah.
Right. So we can start with, I've been part of Shikshantar, so yes. So Shikshantar, we start with, drawings and then expressions as in oral form of storytelling, and then it goes on. I mean, that's what I guess. But this is a open question. Seema Didi, thank you for all very interesting, takeaways. Actually, it's been such a wonderful session, but I have a last question from all the panelists. Do you think stories are also part of not just intellectual development, but emotional development? And how can schools nurture this skill in a structured yet engaging way? So this is
So
open to all of the
I
panelists. Yeah.
So I would like to share one of my experiences with class one children recently. So I think this season has really been very, very harsh on a lot of little children because so many children falling sick and down with seasonal infections. And there also have been cases where like we have had cases where like a lot of people passed away due to dengue. So we had this one incident in one of our classrooms where this happened, so which was very, very unfortunate. And we did not know how to bring this up for discussion with the children because this child was a part of the classroom and the children are such a close-knit community. And then children do not have the emotional vocabulary or the language to even express what they would be going through. And yet at the same time, you also need to have this discussion with the children because you can't just put it under the carpet. But how do you do that with a lot of sensitivity and at the same time also allow for that release from the children? So I think one of the stories that I took up with the children was the Paper Dolls by Julia Donaldson. And so beautifully, I think the children responded to that and they were able to come up with their responses where like it's not a sense of loss for the children, but then how you can just keep the person alive in your memory and also make a joyful experience by remembering all the good times that you've had with this person or this peer in your group. So initially the children were a little close, but towards the end of the story, they all opened up. There were tears, and then they were talking about the memories. They were talking about the moments they shared with this peer in the group. And they also created a memory box where like a lot of cards were put together, a lot of things were put together. And I think this is one way how they were able to release their emotions. But this also has to be consistently a part of the curriculum. You can't do it in
Correct.
bits and
Correct.
pieces.
Correct.
I think the
Agree
four
with you.
important components of every lesson plan are your knowledge, dispositions, feelings, and of course, knowledge construction and skills that go with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. This is wonderful. Priyanka ma'am, would you like to add to that? Manisha ma'am, how do you do that?
Of
I
course,
mean, we are
social emotional learning is such an integral part of learning for
Mhm.
us. I mean, it has always been there, but now it has come in the forefront where people are actually talking about it. we've had these emotional experiences when we were growing up, but bringing that into the forefront is extremely important. And again, storytelling becomes an integral part of it. Just now, like Seema ji shared, that, helping children express themselves, you're able to build a context, and it has to be done regularly. If you have to have a thought that what is it that you want to reach out to, what is it that you want to convey to the children, what is it that you want to draw their attention to. Beautiful images were shared by Sandhya ma'am, drawing a thought and then bringing out an expression. So story gives us a great context in bringing out this particular thought process.
Right. Sandhya ma'am, would you like to add on to that?
I think it's like everybody has been saying, that you have to acknowledge feelings and you have to collect lived experiences, and then you have to combine them together, because if you don't have experience, three things are required. Do you have the vocabulary base to be able to say something, right? Do you have have you experienced it? And then if you can acknowledge your feeling about it, right? I think so. If I have to describe tasting a lemon, then I have to have a language base. What are the words to describe what I feel about it? Then I should have tasted it, and because once I've tasted it, I need to really say something about it. Then I think these, if we go in a logical uh, manner, and yet also, if the children don't have experiences, then they won't be able to write. So you're writing about something, the random experiences. Let the experience, the choice of what the children will write also come from there, right? There are certain things that we all live. I really enjoyed Seema ji's, her experiences or sharing of all collective grief,
Absolutely.
joys. And so from there, you have to, what are the children experiencing? Let them suggest what they want to write about, instead of having a pre-decided your writing skill task that the children have to
Correct.
complete.
Absolutely. Manisha ma'am, and then I come finally to Kirti ma'am in that order.
Yes, I think I agree with what they're saying. It's very important to have it open, the topics that are given for writing to children. A lot of times they don't really relate to what they're writing about. So it's very important that we choose a topic very, very wisely when we are having some writing tasks in class. So yes, and of course, creating some safe space for expression, not being prejudiced, not stereotyping. And so those are the things very, very important when, especially when we read also. Even if you read something what a child has written, you come to know so much through what a child's write. I come to know about each child's family, of what he experiences just when I read his essay as an English teacher. I come to know a lot about his background, about what he feels. A lot of times they don't want to share, maybe orally or verbally, but when they write, I come to know a lot. So there are 30 students in a class. I come to know each and everybody, what he feels, what he thinks, and what his parents are like, whether he has sibling. So yeah, I think that storytelling, writing is such a powerful medium for us to know our students better. And yeah, I mean, it should be open and free.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, Kirti ma'am. So I also talk about, how you'll take it. How do you see it with underserved children also?
Yeah, for us, it is very important because the students, most of the students that come to the schools, approximately all of them, mostly are the first generation learners. Most of them come from a lot of broken homes. So, giving them that, they come from diverse experiences, and then coming back to school and keeping this communication channel open, understanding their diverse perspectives, and also for teachers to address their social emotional needs, which probably sometimes students do not talk directly to the teachers. They do not convey. We don't have special educators at our schools, who would run this channel. So, teachers have to actually make that unsaid effort of understanding what the children are feeling, communicate with them, probably address their social emotional needs through stories. So this is something that we really take care of. And, also I would not call it a predefined task, but creating channels for children inside the classroom so that they feel open to share their experiences. Creating tasks like that, which do not come as a predefined task, but ensure that they express themselves, is something that we really do. We do a lot of immersive activities in the language classes, because
Mm.
of course that needs to be done in a structure as well, so that we do not miss out the essence of what we want to do. So I think with us, it is very, very important. The teachers, the team, entire field team, we have a lot of coordinators working along with the schools, taking care of this aspect.
Right. Thank you so
And
much,
if you have a
Anamika.
minute, I'd like to read out a little
Yes,
story,
ma'am, of course.
in which there's a, yeah, a primary grader, very young child. When you are told that you can write what you feel, right?
Mm.
So, and you don't, as long as you know the word, you can forget about the spelling. You can write whichever way you want.
Mm.
So there is this, which I'd read. I found it very interesting. This is a child. The topic is walk to school, right? And the child writes that when I walk to school with my brother, we don't talk. I always listen to the hustle bustle. The spellings are all over the place, going on in other people's houses, right? So, and he writes, I also like to feel the breeze hit my face, my skin. Most of all, I like the way the wind pushes me. When it's hot, I like the way the sun crisps my skin.
Lovely.
When it is cold, I like the way the clouds puff up, etc., etc. Now, I am big now. I love walking to school, is how he ends. There's nothing about the walk, the distance, the road, where is the school, and this, the child just writes about what I feel when I'm walking. And so the every writing should be about the senses. What does my skin
Yes.
feel? What do I see? What do I hear?
Mm.
What does my heart, how does my heart respond? And then you give them the tools, right? That, if you there could be and once you do that,
Mm. Mm.
beautiful, in which way the child is going to respond. So what do I see? I see other
Absolutely.
people's houses. There's a lot of hustle bustle going on. That's got nothing to do with the walk, but it's how the child is responding to the world as the child walks. And I think all teachers who develop language, it's important that you make the child open up to whatever the child feels, and whatever the five senses can assimilate, and then go on. You can't write about random things without knowing about them. So if,
Absolutely.
whether it is sustainability, or it's grief, or it is happiness, or anything, if it is, unless you have experienced it, so first create circumstances to experience those for the children. Find out what they like to write about. And if they're writing about something, the week prior or the same week, do we have books in the in the class library, which are about the same thing? Or are you reading aloud? Or is, if the smart boards, are the children seeing, or are they talking about it? Is the parent coming in to talk about it? It's a gender equality. You can call all kinds of people who have diverse roles, that you don't identify with that gender. Let Break the stereotypes, bring the world in, let the child go out into the world, give them the words, then they will write.
Correct. So, so beautifully put together. Everything what we were trying to get at. Thank you so much, Sandhya ma'am. This was fantastic. Anamika, would you like to add on now?
Yeah, sure. Sonia, it's just like, Nari Shakti today. I just felt, everyone was just literally so bang on the topic that, and it is not something that it is a fancy to discuss on this. It's absolutely important and very relevant to talk on this topic that, nurturing young minds, why schools must develop storytelling and writing skills. And everyone, I really want to take this opportunity to thank each of the, panelists, because the participants, we have 260 plus participants, and I'm sure everyone has a takeaway for today. So special thanks to each one of you. Like, for example, Seema Upadhyay ji, the point that she said, we all have our own stories, you know we go to school, we come back home, we say आज school में पता है क्या हुआ, and we have so much to narrate. आज teacher ने ये किया और आज principal ने ये किया. Or if we are employees, we want to talk about our bosses, our colleagues. Everyone has a story, but nurturing that becomes very important. That is a point she told, that checking out on possibilities to be original. I think that's a very, very important point. We need to be original thinkers, creating thinkers. That is something we need to nurture. So thank you so much, Seema Upadhyay. Wonderful points you've shared with us. And then Dr. Kirti, I think the point with which you started, that you're a promoter of story. You didn't say I'm Dr. Kirti. You said I'm a promoter of story. I think that speaks volumes about you as an individual, as a human, as how important and how engaged you are, with your work. You call yourself a promoter of storytelling. And another point which hit me was, you didn't talk just about it was not just talking about children, but writing, you said it develops confidence, not just in children but also teachers. So important, such an important point, because if it is if it's the children that we focus on and forget the teachers, then again schools will lose the focus. So important that teachers also should develop confidence, and writing and reading do help out there. So thank you so much for those valid points, which I'm sure each and every participant here is going to note and take it home. It's going to remain for a long time. Manisha Chaturvedi ji, thank you so much. Sorry if my tongue rolled a second. Manisha Chaturvedi ji, thank you so much. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the point that you said, absolutely, we're all one. It's not that I'm representing this organization, I'm representing XYZ organization. We're not here for that. We want every child in our country to develop, and that's what Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam means, And through stories, we're getting everyone into one platform. We want that these children must write, must develop, and even water pollution can be told through stories. The way you've come up with those points, that everything through stories, and how problems can be addressed through stories, how important that is. So those were very beautiful points mentioned by you. Thank you so much, Manisha ji. And then Priyanka Barara ji, I think the points you mentioned about how story writing helps in creative thinking. Yes, I can be very good, I can be a story narrator, I can be good at my task, but when I keep listening, or when I'm encouraged to write a story, or when I'm encouraged to narrate a story, knowingly, unknowingly, creative conclusion or creative climax of the story is something that I start thinking of. Like I keep saying, I keep giving this example. If Rajmouli had not made Bahubali, and if Bahubali was a book, probably my conclusion would have been much more better than what Rajmouli showed on screen. Because when you read or write, it's my imagination goes much beyond. So I think the points that you shared, about meaningful transaction through stories, very, very important, extremely nice those points were. And you need to create a safe place for children. And I think this is where schools play a very, very important role. The teachers play important role, because as a child, as a school kid, I looked up to my teachers. As a college student, I never looked up at my professor that much. But as a school kid, the way my teacher would dress up, the way she would pin up her sari, the way her hairstyle was, I always wanted to copy that. So that's the impact when teachers are creating. So it's highly important that we create that safe place for the children, So extremely wonderful talking to all of you. And last but not the least, Sandhya Avasti ji, I think you're certainly not jobless, ma'am. You said that the AI has taken over and virtually you've kind of become jobless. I so relate to what you said, because yes, I have all, anyone wants an introduction for anything, they would reach out to me. My neighborhood would reach out to me, and I would write quickly and give it to them. I was playing your role for a very, very long time, but it says that the world comes around, like Treta Yugaya, Dwapar Yugaya, this Yugaya, again Kali Yuga ke baad, again it'll all come back again, it'll all begin from the beginning. And like as I was kid, probably bell bottoms were fashions or bellies were fashion, then those went off, and then the next generation was into tight jeans, skinny jeans, and this thing, and now again the bell bottom things have come up. So AI probably nayi dulhan ki taraf, for a short time it will enjoy its time, but then eventually it's the talent, it's the stories with which we've grown up listening to our grandmothers, mothers, parents, teachers, that is going to last for long. And every one of you already has been playing a great role in nurturing the young minds when it comes to inspiring them to tell stories or making them write stories. It's been fantastic to have each one of you here. Thank you so much. Can't thank you all enough, because you've spared so much time today, but if you can spare a few more minutes, and any of our participants, we have 200 plus participants today, and anyone wants to ask anything to our panelists, quick 5 minutes, we'll take a couple of questions and then wind up. I request our panelists to stay on with us for a few more minutes. If that is okay with you, if you all can give a thumbs up, then we'll take a few more questions from the participants. Okay, I've got a thumbs up from you. Okay, thank you so much. Participants, आप लोगों में से कोई भी any query, any question while you're dealing with the students, if there's anything that you've come across, you can please put it in the chat box. And while they're typing their questions, meanwhile, I would also like to say there's something very interesting coming up on 29th of October. Like, you know, uh, there are several times we would have seen that the principal had told something. Half the teachers go to only one teacher, say, what did she say? What was her point? I didn't understand. Or the boss has given instruction. We say, he said something, but what does it mean? Kya karna hai? What is to be done? Because we're not able to comprehend what they've told. Understanding is not. We're hearing it, but understanding is gone for a toss. So on 29th, 3 to 4, we have a beautiful panel discussion on this topic, unlocking minds, how writing helps in critical thinking. So this is a beautiful thing, and of course comprehension in children, that is very much required. So I request all our panelists as well as participants to be a part of this wonderful discussion on 29th, because this is really going to help not just a critical thinking and comprehension in children, but it will also help the teachers to take these points to them. So next week you can all join, and among the participants, if anybody has any question, please put it in the chat box before we wind up.
One last thing, we are talking about writing. Our National Writers Workshop is still going on. Please encourage all the children to participate. Our last date is, we've taken out results for the children who submitted till 30th of September, but it's still on, and it's going to go on till 30th October. We love to encourage children to write, express themselves through stories, through nonfiction or poetry, whatever medium they would like to write through. And love to see the representation, actually, because it's not a competition. It's more like just encouraging children to write and participate. So looking forward to many more entries from all the schools, teachers who are here. Do encourage all the children to write. And this is so fantastic. Thank you so much. This was a wonderful session. Thank you, Sandhya ma'am. Thank you, Manisha ma'am, Priyanka ma'am, Seema Didi, Kirti ma'am. Thank you so much. This was thank you for taking out time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All the participants are also thanking each one of you. So thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you all.
Thank you, Samika.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sonia. It was a lovely, very well conducted session. And thank you to all the panelists. It was very short, but loved listening to you. And I'm sure we will connect again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all
And
of
thank
you.
you, participants.